Do you remember those parties where the most ridiculous song of the night ended up being the one everybody danced to until sunrise? 10 stories like that, born almost by accident, out of laughter, lost bets, and even studio fistfights, ended up being worth millions. Songs rejected for being too silly, that now play at every wedding and on every nostalgia station in Latin America. And somewhere in this countdown, I'm going to tell you about a band so big they nearly came to blows over a song they hated themselves, and that today is the wedding favorite across half the world. These stories have waited decades to be told. Let's begin. Number 10. Mickey by Tony Basil, 1982. Do you remember that cheerleader chant echoing across the field at your school? Tony Basil remembered it too, and she decided to build an entire music video around that memory, long before she even had a song to go with it. The truth is, she took an almost forgotten song by an English band, rewrote it, and added a chant nobody had asked her for. The record label begged her to take that chant off the record. They thought it was ridiculous. Tony refused. The result? A drum beat built from the stomping feet of real cheerleaders, recorded over and over until it sounded like an army on the march. Nobody saw it coming. The song hit #1 in December of that year, while the cheerleaders in the video were actual students from a California high school, running routines Tony herself had learned as a teenager. The irony is that the chant, the very thing that saved the song, never earned Tony a single cent in songwriting royalties, a worldwide anthem, and barely $1,500 in her pocket. In Mexico, that cheerleading routine went straight into the afternoon youth TV shows of the 80s, permanently marking the adolescence of an entire generation that still remembers every single clap. Does it deserve number 10 on this list? Without a doubt. Because few songs show so clearly how a studio joke can turn into a fortune for everybody, except the person who invented it. And if that story of contrast surprised you, wait for what comes next, because the next name on this list is hiding a secret that's even harder to believe. Have you heard any of the songs on this list? Don't forget to leave a comment so we can remember the old days together. Number 9. Kung Fu Fighting by Carl Douglas, 1974.
Everybody was kung fu fighting.
10 minutes. That was all the time they had to record it. The truth is, nobody in that studio was thinking about making history that afternoon. They just wanted to finish on schedule.
Those kids were fast as lightning.
Carl Douglas had gone in to record a serious ballad, the A-side of a single nobody remembers today. When those last few minutes were left over, the producer asked him for any lyrics he had lying around. Douglas pulled out a set he'd written after watching some kids imitating karate kicks in the middle of a London street. Since it was only the B-side, nobody held back. The result? Shouts, sharp thwacks, a riff you'd recognize today with your eyes closed, and a song nobody expected more than 5 people to ever hear. 5 full weeks without a single spin on the radio. And yet, it ended up selling 11 million copies worldwide, completely overshadowing the serious song that was supposed to be the star that night. At weekend disco parties all across Latin America, this song became the anthem for throwing karate kicks at each other between fits of laughter, marking a whole generation that grew up as martial arts movies reached regional television for the very first time. And if you think a 10-minute fluke is already hard to believe, wait for the next name, because that's where a radio host walked into a problem not even he saw coming. Number 8. Disco Duck by Rick Dees and his cast of idiots, 1976. Let's be honest. How many times did you dance to this song without knowing that its own creator wasn't even allowed to mention it on the radio? Rick Dees was a DJ in Memphis, and in his spare time, he did a duck voice to crack up his co-workers at the station. He wrote it in a single day, thinking it was nothing more than a private joke. No major label would touch it. They considered it far too ridiculous to release seriously.
When the music stopped, I returned to my seat.
The irony is that the very station where Dees worked banned him from playing it on air. A radio host censored over his own song. When he simply mentioned that his record was almost at #1, they fired him that same morning.
Went to a party the other night.
5 days later, Disco Duck reached #1 in the entire country, an unemployed DJ with the most listened to song in the United States. At family disco parties in Mexico in the late 70s, this oddity became the perfect icebreaker. That moment when even the grandparents were willing to get their feet moving, laughing the whole time. Does it deserve a place in this countdown? Of course it does. Few stories show so clearly how an office joke can turn into a worldwide phenomenon and an unfair firing in the very same month. And if you think you've heard enough irony for one day, the next name on this list comes straight out of a neighborhood where nobody imagined an entire industry was about to be born. Number 7. Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang, 1979.
To the hip hop, the hippie to the hippie, the hip hip, the hopper, you don't stop, rock it to the bang.
A producer walks into a pizzeria in New Jersey and hears an employee rapping while he works the dough. That scene, as ordinary as any other afternoon on the job, would end up changing music forever. Sylvia Robinson was desperately trying to put together a rap group for her nearly bankrupt label. She recruited 2 young men straight off the street and the third still covered in flour. She made audition in the back seat of a car. None of the 3 had ever recorded professionally before.
Everybody go, hotel, motel, what you gonna do today?
The truth is, they cut the song in a single take, 15 full minutes with nothing done twice. A bass player barely 17 years old had to hold the same line without slipping for a second. Halfway through the session, the pizzeria's boss called the studio, threatening to fire his employee if he didn't get back to work.
Now what you hear is not a test, I'm rapping to the beat.
The result? 3 unknowns thrown together by chance created the first big commercial hit of a genre nobody was taking seriously yet. In the biggest cities of Latin America, this song played on FM radio, opening the door for an entire generation of Latino rappers who would arrive years later. What happened afterward to those 3 unknowns, to the money this song generated, and to the question of who really deserved credit for its words, is a story that still divides opinion to this day. And there's something else in this countdown. Something involving a dance craze so controversial that at first even the radio stations wouldn't dare touch it.
To the bang, bang the boogie, say up, jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie beat.
Number 6. El Baile del Perrito, The Little Dog Dance, by Wilfrido Vargas, 1989. How many times did you dance to this at a family party without knowing that several radio stations refused to play it? The truth is, it all started with a street dance already going around the streets of the Dominican Republic. People crouching down and imitating a happy little dog. Wilfrido Vargas and his countryman Winston Paulino took that piece of choreography and turned it into a song, half as a joke in the middle of a studio experiment. The irony is that Vargas himself later admitted the dance was suggesting a little more than harmless fun. And for exactly that reason, some stations judged it too risque to broadcast seriously. A catchy rhythm, censored for moving too much. And yet you who grew up with this song know it never had one single word out of place. Just a happy little dog shaking its hips. Nothing more. To be honest, that contrast was precisely what made it unstoppable. It ended up as one of the best-selling merengues in the history of Mexico and Central America, and the contract Vargas signed afterward came to nearly $2 million, the biggest of his entire career. Today, there isn't a christening, a wedding, or a weekend family party anywhere in Latin America where this little dog doesn't come out to dance again. And here's the good part, because just when you think you've heard the boldest joke in this countdown, the next name on the list comes from an airport with an idea the artist himself wasn't even planning to use that night. If you've ever shared a meaningful memory with this song, leave a comment with the number 6. It's my way of knowing we're remembering those moments together. Number 5, The Streak by Ray Stevens, 1974.
Well, yes, they call him the street.
5 days. That's how long it took a passing fad to become the #1 record in an entire country. Ray Stevens read a short news item about a strange phenomenon spreading through American universities. People running naked through public spaces. He thought it was perfect material for a comedy song, jotted down some notes on that very flight, and decided to finish it before the fad burned itself out.
Boogity, boogity. A boogity, boogity.
The truth is, he performed every voice on the recording himself. A news reporter and a terrified witness, all from the same throat. The laughter you hear isn't from an audience. It comes from a machine built for exactly that. Nobody saw it coming. 5 days after the song went out on the radio, someone ran naked across the stage at Hollywood's most important awards show, right behind the presenter. That scandal ended up pushing the song all the way to #1.
Ethel's in there getting her a cold drink. I hollered in there, I said, "Don't look Ethel!"
On AM radio all across Latin America, this oddity became the international joke of the moment. A mandatory topic on the region's variety shows, the kind you probably watched with the whole family gathered around the television. What happened afterward to the person who streaked at the most famous awards show in film, and why nobody ever heard from them again, is a story that still surprises anyone hearing it for the first time. And speaking of uncomfortable surprises, the next name on this list comes from a Texas ranch, with a shout in 2 languages that nobody planned on leaving in the final recording.
Ethel? Is that you, Ethel? Where do you think you're going?
Number 4, Woolly Bully by Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs, 1965.
1, 2, 3, 4.
They were minutes away from recording, and suddenly, the whole plan fell apart. Domingo Zamudio, born in Texas to Mexican parents, already had a song ready about a dance craze. But right before he walked into the studio, an executive from the label told him they didn't want another song in that style anymore. Nothing they'd planned was usable. Zamudio improvised on the spot, taking the name of his own cat as the new title. The truth is, not even the Spanish countdown that opens the song was planned. Zamudio was just messing it around with the band, counting off the beat in the language he grew up with. And that joke ended up being the first thing the whole world hums to this day. The result? Lyrics so garbled that several stations banned it, convinced it was hiding something indecent. It was hiding nothing. Just 2 made-up names talking about a horned animal. And here's the good part. That mix of English and Spanish made it the first record of Mexican-American origin to sell 1 million copies right in the middle of the British invasion, outselling bands arriving from the other side of the ocean. My friend, this song opened a door that many Tex-Mex artists would walk through afterward, carrying that border flavor onto America's biggest charts for the very first time. And if you think you've heard enough happy accidents already, the next name on this list comes from a small Swiss village, with an accordion nobody imagined would cross borders and generations. Number 3. El baile de los pajaritos, the little bird's dance, performed by María Jesús y su acordeón, 1981.
Pajaritos a bailar cuando acabas de nacer, tu colita es de mover. Chu, chu, chu.
A Swiss musician used to play this melody just to liven up after-dinner conversation for tourists at a mountain restaurant. And he never imagined that 40 years later, children all across Latin America would grow up thinking it was a song from their own country. The truth is, Werner Thomas wrote it in 1957 with no lyrics, just an accordion and a bit of choreography he invented to entertain the diners. It didn't even have a proper title. They just called it the Duck Dance. Nobody in that Swiss restaurant would have bet a single cent that this little tune would cross borders and generations. The irony is that the melody traveled through 3 different countries almost by chance before Maria Jesus turned it into a phenomenon with her accordion. It passed through Belgium first, then reached the Netherlands, where a radio station played it as the throwaway B-side of some ordinary record. The result? That B-side, the one nobody planned to promote, ended up dominating the charts for months on end, completely overshadowing the main song that was supposed to shine that season. You who dance to this at some kid's birthday party or at a quinceañera know it doesn't need deep words. Just bird arms and the urge to do the step again and again until you're out of breath from laughing. To be honest, few songs show so clearly how something meant to entertain a handful of tired tourists can end up shaping the childhood of millions of people on the other side of the ocean, without its own author ever imagining it. And here's the good part. Because this dance holds a connection to the next name on this list, one that was also born with no pretensions. But at some point that night, somebody walked into the studio carrying a hurt so heavy that what ended up on that tape should never have sounded so cheerful. Number 2. Achy Breaky Heart by Billy Ray Cyrus, 1992. An amateur songwriter, fooling around with a guitar and a drum machine his wife had given him, wrote this song without meaning anything serious by it, and ended up creating the anthem of a craze that would take over bars and dance halls across half the world. The truth is, Don Von Tress wrote it in 1990, almost as a joke after a breakup. The first choice to record it was a gospel group, but the lead singer turned the lyrics down. He found them too silly to take seriously.
Don't tell my heart, my achy, breaking heart.
The irony is that Billy Ray Cyrus wasn't even the first to record it. A nearly unknown trio released it a year earlier under a different title, and it went completely unnoticed. When Cyrus picked it back up, he added something nobody had accounted for: a simple dance step, designed almost as teaching material for line dancing classes. The result? A farmhouse song turned worldwide phenomenon, while the genre's serious critics treated it as pure cringe. My friend, you who danced to this in some dance hall know that rhythm ended up conquering bars and clubs all over Latin America in the early 90s, becoming mandatory at every weekend family party in Mexico.
Oh, you can tell my eyes to watch out for my mind.
To be honest, few stories show so clearly how an idea rejected for being ridiculous can end up defining an entire era, while the person who wrote it barely saw his name on a contract. And speaking of contrasts, nobody expected. The next name on this list involves the biggest band in history, fighting among themselves over a song that would end up being the wedding favorite all over the world. Number 1. Obla Di, Obla Da by the Beatles, 1968. The biggest band in the history of music hated their own number one song. Paul McCartney wrote it during a spiritual retreat in India, inspired by a phrase a Nigerian friend of his kept repeating in the clubs of London. The truth is, John Lennon openly called it granny music and flatly refused to let it come out as a single in England or in the United States. The irony is that they recorded this song over almost a full week, with so many different versions that the sound engineer himself quit the day after they finished it. One night, Lennon stormed out of the studio furious, came back under the influence, sat down at the piano, and played that same intro, but twice as fast and with far more force. The result? That furious version, born out of total frustration, ended up being the one the whole world sings to this day. My friend, you who danced to this at some wedding or quinceañera, know that Paul made a mistake and sang the wrong name in the last verse, and they decided to leave it in because everybody else thought it was perfect. This song became one of the most sung at weddings and quinceañeras all across Latin America, still turning up on Sunday nostalgia radio shows to this day. To be honest, few stories sum up so well what we've been looking for tonight. Songs born almost by accident, out of laughter or out of arguments. That ended up meaning far more than anyone imagined at the start. That's the real magic behind every joke that turned into a legacy. A cheerleader chant nobody asked for, a disco duck that cost a man his job, a little dog no radio host would touch, and a giant of a band fighting over a song that plays at every wedding today. 10 jokes, 10 fortunes. It seems that whatever is born to make a handful of friends laugh ends up being the thing an entire generation can't stop humming. None of this was built on purpose. And maybe that's exactly why it never went away. If any of these stories took you back to an afternoon of your teenage years, subscribe and keep tuning into this radio with us. And tell me, how old were you the first time you danced to one of these? And if these stories moved something in you, wait until you hear what's coming next time. Some jokes hide secrets that run even deeper.